Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollins High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Good evening. Today we're going to be working on our Eggy Whites project. This is the homage to the bouncing ball project. 3D Buzz, one of my favorite animation channels that I've ever had to watch. They did one of these many years ago, and I thought it was a lot of fun to end up doing that. And I wanted to bring that into the classroom, so we're going to end up doing our version of it. And everybody ends up doing a version of a bouncing ball sort of project anyway. So I figured I would add on some flair. Instead of a ball, we're going to have a little egg. We are going to have the stage and the curtain effect, but ours is going to be a little egg character. This is going to be Eggy Whites. We do have our storyboards set and ready, and for folks who are watching who are not part of the class, you do want to have storyboards. It just helps you as a guide and sort of a template really for us to see what's going to go on. So up here we have our scene. We only have one scene, and it's going to be one continuous shot. But we have a change in our camera. So as this progresses, you'll see the camera does change. So down here we have a description of what's going to be happening. So scene fades in. This is an extreme wide shot because you get to see the entire stage, and the entire thing is going to be about 10 seconds long. So my little tick down here for a running time of 1 second might be a little bit short, but it takes about a total of 3 seconds from the time that we open the scene to the time that these curtains open. It's about 3.5 seconds, so we might be good on runtime. And then I have the next one. So our curtain's going to open up, and our character's going to appear right through here. And each one of these has a description. So we have our scene. I only have one scene here because I have a single camera with no cuts, and I have shot 1 and then shot 1.2 because there's no cut. We're just transitioning. So this is basically shot 1 continued, and we're still in the extreme wide shot. And it just tells us about how many seconds are going before these events really pass by. So this is shot 1.3, and we have our character. He kicks the door open, and then he's going to go boing, 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 and kind of hit the stool right here. And here he is. So the camera is going to pan over, and he's going to go boing, 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 and then land right there. That's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So let's get cracking. I'm going to open up Maya. Now here we are inside our view. If your stage does not look quite like mine, you're welcome to set up your grid the same as mine. Mine's 512, 96, 32. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in something to use for my floor. You guys are welcome to pick what you like. We're not really going to see below our floor, so you can get away with using a plane. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to have a basic plane for my floor. And then it drops down there. For my size, I want to take up a good portion of this here. So I'm just going to dial this in. So remember, we're working in Z front. So here's Z, and this is our front. Right, so the front's going to be here. Our width should be the x-axis, and it is. So if you try to click and then middle mouse click and drag your wheel, or hold your middle mouse button and drag, you can scale that, but it's going to cap out at 100, and that's still way too small. So I'm actually going to make this, I'll say 512. No, there we go. And then I think I'll do my stage. Let's see what 256 looks like. I'll do 512. I'll make it square. Yep, that'll work. I don't need these subdivisions, so I'm going to get rid of them. And there we go, we have our plane. I'm going to go ahead and name this stage floor. And I will come up to my rendering tab and I will drop on, I want some reflectiveness because this is going to be a wooden floor. So which one do I want? This one's really shiny. That's like more like a glass. It's more like metal. I'll take this little guy here, should be a basic blend. And I will go over to my blend and I will name this wood floor. Now for right now, you guys can just put a different shading color on here. You can click the little shader, color down here. And you can grab like a wood looking color. If you want to make the wood texture, I have a wood texture right here on my channel. You can see how to make this texture, and it's real simple inside of Photoshop, but if you not sure how to do this, I do have a tutorial on it. We will also be needing a brick texture for the back. Now you guys don't have to use these. You can make it, instead of doing brick, you can do paneling. Instead of, wooden floor, you can do concrete, or you can do grass. It's up to you, but I'm just going to do a traditional wooden floor and a brick background. Alright. So I'm going to drag in the next part of my stage. I need a back wall. So what I can do is drag in another plane. And then I think I'll do what I did before, 512. Except this time I will do 256. And where I'm getting these numbers from is I'm just pulling numbers kind of out of the air to make it large enough so I can see everything in my stage. Now again, I don't need all this detail, but I am going to want to cut away a spot from my door. So let me go ahead and hit these subdivisions down to 1, and I will just cut the door in manually. Let's see, I'm going to need 2 cuts down the middle and 1 cut along the width. So let me do these 2 here, and then this one will be like that. And I'm going to use this to make the door opening. Okay. Come here, you. Can't select it. The downside of having a plane inside of a plane is sometimes you can't grab them. Just move this one down. Alright, this one I'm going to rotate 90 degrees in the X. Put my floor back to the origin. My stage, since I know it is 512 high, and it's halfway down, I'll just put it at 256. Oh, I'm sorry. It is not 512. It's already 256, so it needs to be 128. And that should snap it right to the floor. And then I can move it back in the Z, minus 256. That'll work. But I'm actually going to need 2 wall panels, because when the door opens, I'll see empty space, and I don't want to see empty space. So this one I'm just going to hit the Control D to duplicate it, and I will move it up. This is about where my curtain's going to be. I'm going to put this one right there. It doesn't have to be precise. If you need it to be precise, you can hold X on the keyboard and then snap it into place. And that'll work. So this will be back wall. This one will be stage wall. And on the back wall, I'm going to remove, whoops. I'm going to end up removing the extra cuts that are in there. Let me put each one of these on their own layer real quick. So my stage floor, I'm going to right click on layers, create from selected, and I'm just going to put floor. We're going to do stage floor. You can color code these if it helps you. Since I know it's going to be a wooden color, just do brown. And I can toggle that on and off, which is handy. This is my stage wall. Create from selected. Go ahead and name that. And that's just a double click on the word there and you can name it. This will be stage wall. This one will have a red brick color. And then I'll do my back wall. And my back wall will also be red brick, but I will give it a different, I'll get like this reddish one. Not quite as red as the other one. And then back wall. And each one of these I can toggle on and off, or I can make them into references so I can't accidentally grab them, which is handy. So I'm going to turn off my stage wall. I'm going to grab my back wall, go into edge mode, that's F10 on the keyboard, and I'm going to get rid of these edges. I don't need them. But once I get rid of the edges, I also have to get rid of the vertices. So I'll go into vertex mode, and you can see these extra vertices just kind of floating. What I'll do is I'm going to marquee select all of them, and I will hit the delete key, and it will remove, whoops. So what I got to do now is I got to remove the vertices, and what I'll do is select the ones that I want to get rid of. So these two bottom ones, delete this one and this one. Go ahead and delete those. And then I'll grab these guys. So I should have just the 4. Because I don't need to have all that detail. We're not going to go super crazy as far as cutting things. We're going to try to keep this pretty simple because this is more about the animation and setting up a scene than it is about doing all the model work. So I have my back wall, my stage wall. My back wall I don't really need to touch for a while, so I will reference pose it so I can't accidentally grab it. My stage wall, I'm going to need, so the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to go into front view, and let's determine how big a wall should be, or how big a door should be. So I'm going to drop in a cube, and this is just to give me a reference point. My door, since we're in centimeters, a person's 182.5 centimeters. Sorry, 182.5 centimeters on the height. So this is 182. But the door should be bigger than the person, so I'll do 210 high, and I'll do 105 or 120 on the width. As far as the depth is concerned, I don't really need much on the depth, but I will do 8 just so it looks like a door. And up here, I'm going to just move this in the translation. My height is 210, so I'm going to cut that in half, 105. So there's my door. But my door is actually pretty big for my stage, so I'm going to scale this down. Let me do this. Let's see what it looks like. Half of that. So we'll do 60 and 105. And I'll change this height down to, let's see. That should work. Push this back into my stage, or my stage wall. That looks like it'll work. Now before I can have my door be useful, I'm going to move my pivot point. And the reason for that is if I want this door to swing open, if I try to rotate the door open as it is, it sort of opens like a revolving door. And that's no fun. So to move the pivot point, I'm going to go into wireframe. That's 4 on the keyboard. And to move the pivot point, I'm going to go into move, that's the W key. I'm going to press insert on the keyboard, and that'll change my widget so that it is movable. So if I move my widget now, it just moves the widget and not the object. And I'm going to snap this pivot point down to the center on here. So the way to do that is I'm going to hold V on the keyboard and just drag it, and it's going to snap down to this vertice, or vertex, which is handy. And then if you want, you can just move it by hand into the middle. That looks middle enough. If we were on the origin, we could just snap to the grid, but we're actually not on the grid, so we're kind of off. So it's not even. If it messes with your OCD, I apologize. You can always snap it to the grid before you do any of that. So here's our handle, and now if we move it, it swings open like a door. But our door actually should be swinging. If we look at our illustration here, the door swings open to the right. Well, technically it's stage left, but it's our right. So we could do one of two things. We could change the pivot point location, or we could just rotate the door. And for the sake of simplicity, it's actually simpler if we move this point, because if we start changing the numbers in here, it'll be backwards. So let's just move it over. So hold V. So insert to get our widget to move. Hold V on the keyboard. We will snap it across, and I'll just pull it into the middle. Just eyeball it. That's probably fine. Insert to get rid of the movable thing, and then W so we can move this back. And I'm going to put that about halfway. I can actually hold X on the keyboard and just snap it to the grid there, which is handy. So now when the door opens, it'll swing open. And we can control that right down here, so you can see it updating live right there. Dink. And there it is. Had we just flipped the door around, it would have been 180 degrees, and then we would have to know the math backwards in our head. But since we know that the origin is 0, and we know that 180 is all the way around, we can work a little bit simpler because we have our origin point. All right, before we can put this door to use, we need to cut the shape into the wall here. So let me go into the front view now. I'm going to go into wireframe, and I'm going to go into vertex mode. That's F9 on the keyboard, and I will select the back wall. Okay, so what we want to do is select our vertices. Remember, in vertex mode, that's F9 on the keyboard. I'm going to select these guys, hit W, and I'm just going to snap these down. Hold X, drag the arrow, and I'll snap these down to there. So that's exact on our door. I'm going to then grab this group, hold X on the keyboard, snap that in to there. So that's right in line with our door. The next group, hold X, snap that in, and that should be right in line with our door. If I jump back into my perspective view and then hit 5 on the keyboard, I can take a look at my door, my back wall. I'm going to swing my door open, grab my back wall, go into face mode, that's F11, select this face right here and hit delete. So now we have the hole there for our door to go through. I'm going to grab the door, go into object mode. I'm going to rotate that back to 0. Conversely, you could go, sorry, I can't talk today. You can go over to the rotation Y and just drop it down to 0. So we have the basic look of our stage. We need to set up our curtain, and then we need to set up our pieces. So make sure the door is named door. So I'm going to go ahead and name this thing door. And I will give this its own texture. My door is also going to be wood. So I will I'm going to debate for a second here how I want to set this up. It depends on where I want to put the UVs. I will just go ahead and do another blend. And I will call this door, because I might do a custom thing. Door texture. My stage wall, I'm just going to do it as brick. So let's open. Now brick is pretty much like a matte color, so I'll use this flat Lambert. And I'll say brick wall texture. Everything's kind of hard to look at, so I'm going to go ahead and give these guys some color. Again, you're welcome to color your floors how you like, but I'm going to add the textures that I've created from earlier. First things first, I have to unreference these, and I will create a new layer for my door. So create layer from selected. This is going to be, let's say door, and I'm not going to give it a color. Just hit there. All right, so I already have the name, so I will say door layer. So I can toggle that on and on if I need to. And I can grab my stage, got that. So first things first, I'm going to do the floor. To get to the texture, I can do Control A to bring up the attributes. And then in through here, I can pick, my texture. I can kind of go through all these tabs and dig for it, which is the wooden floor. Or you can right click on it, go down to material attributes, and it will bring you to the material editor. Click on the little icon here. Go to files, open this up, inside my game design folder, I actually have a textures references folder inside here. Where are you? Where are you? I should have T_wood floor. Now you might notice that I have a few other pieces here. I've got a bump map and a diffuse channel. And what these do is they kind of give the illusion of depth on here. And we will make these, if you go check out my other video on how to make the floor, you will see the how to make this. I'm going to click on the wood texture diffuse channel. You know, which one's which? I'm just checking to see which one I want. Okay, so this one is for this one. So I'll grab the wood texture diffuse and open that up. And we don't see it here. We have to push 6 on the keyboard so we can see it. And there's our floor. It's hard to see just because the grid is there. What we can do, I can select this and I can move this up just a bit in the Y just so you can see the texture. Now this is kind of huge, right? Because this is filling the entire texture. If we look at our UV layout, go to Modeling, UVs, UV Editor. If you look at the UVs, you can see which one is the thing. You can see right here I just have the UVs, and if I highlight them right there, it takes up the entire picture, right? You can do a few things. You could scale down your UVs and this would show up, it would tile, but that's kind of silly. So instead of doing it that way, I'm going to go into the material attributes and tell it to tile. So open up material attributes. Let's see where we want to go. We want to click on this little arrow. And then right here where it says place 2D texture, we have coverage, and we also have repeat, so on and so forth. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say 3 by 3. So there's that way. You could do it 3 by 1 if you want the long boards. But they do give us this bit of a huge gap in there. And these still look kind of big. So I'm going to try 10 by 5. So the boards are kind of long, but not huge. And to give this some other look, we can do a rotate. I'm going to do a 45-degree rotation. That might be a little too sharp. Let's I kind of like the way that looks. So that's 64. We're going to have to remember these numbers because we're going to need them for later. So there's that. It's fancy. And our door and our floor is kind of floating above the stage. It's above the grid. That's fine for now. Later we have to remember to put it back down, because if we don't, it's going to be hovering. Or we could move this stuff off the stage as well, or off the grid. I'm going to grab my brick wall. I'm going to bring up the UVs real quick just to make sure that everything's in line. And you can see that this is kind of skewed. But let's see how it's going to work out. I'm going to right click, go into material attributes, click on the little button, under File, open the folder, jump back into my Game Design Textures folder, and I'm going to add, where are you? Red brick. Go ahead and open that. And I have this Mario kind of red brick thing going on with this weird middle brick in the middle. Again, I'm going to adjust how this appears. But before I do that, I'm going to re-project my UVs. So I'm going to select my guy, or my wall, UV editor, bring these up. And then I will go under UVs, go down to planar, hit the little options box. And remember, Z is our front, so you can look at the compass down here. Z is pointing to the front, so that I know the front of this wall is in the Z axis. I'll just hit Z axis, apply, and that will project the entire thing, so we'll get a much more even layout. And then I'm going to close the UV editor, go back into my material attributes, click on the little arrow, place 2D texture, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat this. Let's do 10 by 10. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that works. I'm going to grab the wall behind it, right click, I'm going to go down to Assign Existing Material, and I'm going to choose my brick texture. And there's that one. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this back wall, and I'm going to do the same thing, UVs, and I'm going to hit planar. It should still have our Z axis selected, so just hit it, and there it goes. Now everything is kosher. And if I were to open the door, we have some depth kind of going back in there. And if you wanted this to have more depth, you could make these out of cubes, but I didn't, just to keep things a little bit simple. So there's that. Now for the door to be textured, I may do that in a separate video, just to kind of show you how to do the UVs on this. How long is the video so far? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video right here, and then we'll start on the next one. I'll do one just for the door, and then we'll make our props, and then we'll set up our curtain. Okay?